Hello there. How's everybody doing? Honestly, this should be kind of a surprise because, for the most part, I don't tend to do a part 2 the day after anymore, because, on one hand, I have too much to do, and I get too overworked with stuff. But I've actually held a pretty good rhythm with the painting that I was working on last time, and, yeah, I think I might actually be able to finish this thing on stream, and if not, well, I'd be sitting here painting it anyway, so it seemed like a good time. Yeah, I think I've done enough with the preamble and the setup and everything else, so I'm just going to jump into it. You all know the drill, you all know where I was from last time, so I'm just gonna jump over to my painting screen. There we go. Now, for a little bit more context of where we are, this is roughly what I've added since last time. I've just kind of been throwing in some little parts here and there. So the thing has a lot more detail than it did last time. But it is moving along, and you can kind of see it's starting to get a little bit more definition. Now, the question is whether or not I'm going to go full on detail. Like, all the way down here is kind of what a full resolution looks like, and it's still like a little grimy and a little loose. It could be that I go full ham and just add all the detail to all of this, but in that case, it'll have to be in steps because I have to make sure that all of the in-between details look right before I get to that point. Because, yeah, you don't want to sort of get the generalized picture lost in the process before you get that far. So, that's what I'm going to be doing, and we'll see how far we get. I have roughly, well, somewhere in the ballpark of like 2.5 hours. So, we'll see how far we get. Okay. We'll go for something easy for the soundtrack. I'm just going to do the Street Fighter EX Plus soundtrack for now, and if I think of something better, then we'll switch to that. 1, 2, go. Alright, let's see how far we can take this thing. For now, it's really going to be mostly trying to pick out really anything that seems like it's sticking out or doesn't work or whatever else. So it's going to be me jumping back and forth quite a bit and then just seeing whatever I can spot that seems like it warrants my attention. And there are some bits here that I'm going to be leaving rough for the most part, and then maybe I'll come in later and do a little bit of a touch-up. For example, this area right here is very messy. I'm going to see if I can look after it a little bit, but it could be that I leave most of it just kind of like grass blobs until the very end, just to make sure that it doesn't lose its definition. This is also kind of an interesting experiment, because for the past while now, I've been streaming on Sundays. Just because it makes sense to do so. I have a little bit more extra time on Sundays, and now that I have Mondays off, at least for the most part, I can sort of migrate into Monday without there being too much lost by the end of it. However, there is an interesting thing about Monday, and my assumption is that a lot of people are very tired and or bored because of work. So I guess we'll see how that turns out. Then again, I get the impression that a lot of people that do streaming professionally kind of tend to target Monday anyway, so... Not that it matters too much. I mean, I'm just doing this for fun, you know? So hopefully everyone's doing okay. Everyone get back to the grind for like the split second in early Monday morning. It's a bit ironic because I told this big story yesterday about what happened to Lottie, and how she went to the vet because she was attacked by a different cat. We had to get her help and everything else. And I didn't realize until roughly when I was ending the stream that, oh yeah, I have to take her to the vet today. So, we've been to the vet. She was very good. She did very, very well. She really just hates tunnels when we have her in her crate. And that's really it. She looked at the veterinarian like she was absolutely insane for checking her eyeballs and her teeth and everything. She was skeptical about her injection, but did not fuss about it. She's a very, very good cat. Something less competition for viewership, I think. It could be that. Then again, streaming as an actual career is an entirely different beast all on its own. Trends change. You have to follow what everyone is doing on their sort of off hours. I mean, there's a lot to it. I've actually seen quite a few live streamers now that are in the States or vice versa go for their opposite time zones in the hopes that they'll catch more people. It's very strange. I'll see a lot of people in Scandinavia stream on US hours, and then I'll see people in the US stream on Scandinavian hours. Doesn't have to be, you know, specifically Scandinavian. We share a time zone with, you know, Germany and Italy and Switzerland and a bunch of other countries, so it's not specifically that, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Might just be a desire to switch things up as well. Personally, tonight it was really just I have a couple of hours that I'm already using for painting. Why not just do this live anyway, because I am already on a roll with it. Here. Let's do a little bit of a flip. Yeah, this area is getting a little busy. But honestly, that's okay. I guess it should be allowed to be a little busy. What if I add something to sort of break up that monotony over here? Here. Something like that. Does that work the other way around? Yeah, I think that can work. Nice to hear it went well. Yeah, no, I'm really happy that Lottie is as easy to deal with as she is. For as much as I describe her as a little gremlin, she is the easiest cat to deal with. She's incredibly good at routines. Of course, she has to sort of accept the routine first, but once she's in there, it's just like, well, this is what we're doing now. It's really strange, too. Right now, we're keeping her in for the most part. It's not that she really wanders around all that much, it's just that she's allowed to peek out on the balcony and all that. But now that she's almost 100% in because of the winter, she suddenly recognized that that's what's happening, and has gone back to an old routine that we didn't have for her since maybe like almost 2 years ago, which was when you're inside a lot, you have to walk to the staircase and ask for a treat. when we leave. Why does she do this? Well, because when she was a kitten, if we didn't have some way to, like, bribe her, she would try to run outside. So now she just picked that back up again. She's like, the routine is that I sit by the staircase and you give me a treat. She has no desire to run outside because she already knows what it's like out there, but this is what the routine is. See, this should be some kind of flower petal, I think. Yeah. Not quite as blue as the one above, but it should have some overlapping color bleed from the leaf above. Running cat inside.exe. Yeah, no, that's pretty accurate, honestly. She has this whole, like, resume that she goes through. Here. Maybe I should pull in a little bit more of those flowers here, like one more. I should fill out that space nicely, I think. Like that. The more I work on this, the more it feels like a book cover. Maybe this could be like the Explorer art book cover. Ironic since it doesn't have Mira on it, but... We make discoveries. Harper confirmed. Oh man, I really need to just buckle down and get that done. It's really just the burnout. That's all that's stopping that. I think that's the frustrating part about the way I operate is, like, on one hand I work best under pressure, but it's also very damaging for me to work under pressure for long periods of time. And I need time to just mess around with stuff without any expectations. Like, I noticed that that is a much better environment for me to work in. And there has been virtually none of that for a very long time now. And I don't mean that I don't have time to sit and paint stuff. I've got time. It's more so there's never that moment where I feel like, okay, there's not some kind of business thing that's waiting for me, and I can let my shoulders down. I sort of feel like I can finally just chill out with something. I'm constantly in panic work mode. What kind of books do you read? I've never seen a book with a radiant beautiful cover like this. What could I say as an example? There are a lot of books in my childhood that had covers like this. a lot of like Central European books that were retranslated and sold here. I think the one that always comes to mind whenever I think about this is... What is the name of that? Like, The Great Journey of the Gnomes or something like that? Just a beautifully illustrated book about this big journey that a bunch of gnome people take into Fantasyland. They get stuck in a big pyramid with horrifying monsters in it. They build a giant air balloon, and you get to see all the schematics of it. They get trapped on an iceberg, but it's all wonderfully illustrated. But that's the kind of books that I grew up with. And of course, since I am bilingual, but I didn't necessarily grow up bilingual, picture books helped a lot more. I've never really been able to read long-form books. It's too taxing for me. My dyslexia simply doesn't like it. They set up for no man's land. Do I have to ban you, Adrian? No, seriously though, that was good. Let's see. If we flip that, might need a little bit of more shading on top of that. Like that, maybe? Nah, that doesn't look right. Okay, we'll try to make that shadow a little harsher so that it doesn't feel like it's quite as blended. Anywho, my point is, there were actually quite a few books that kind of had this vibe to it. I think nowadays it's mostly like D&D manuals and maybe art books that have this sort of aesthetic, but I think that's also because the sale value of these things have changed. Back in the day, I feel like people would be much more inclined to shill out on a giant, printed, illustrated book of some kind. People still do, but I feel like the printed market is a little different. These need to be a little smaller. Got a little excessive. Sharpen that a little bit. And add that in there. Okay, flipping that back. There's a little bit of blue bleed in this area. Maybe that's fine. Maybe I can sort of work that into the grass somehow. Does kind of give a neat feeling that it's sort of glowing. Okay. And I could probably get a little bit more definition up here. Not by much, but just to sort of give a feeling that this space is filled as well. Bit here. And then we hit save on that because I don't want to lose it. Maybe I can extend this leaf down a little bit. The world is my oyster. As always, a very strange expression to me. You can do anything. You are a clam. The entire planet will fall to your knees. Will fall to their knees. You are a snail. See, is that enough definition? Yeah, looks about right. Just hitting save again, just in case. Why does it look like there's some weird overlap here? Because there is! Haha! Found it! That needs to be fixed. Feels like there's something missing underneath this leaf. Maybe like something like that, maybe? Yeah, that'll fill it. Whoop. Okay. That should do that. Ooh, music timing. This definitely feels like one of those paintings that I could just sit and clean up for the rest of time. And enjoy it all the way through. Because you could really go as hard on this as you really want. Because even if I do go for all of the detail on this, I could just zoom in another layer, and now we have an entirely new quadrant that I can clean up. Hi, Simon from Video Games. Hello! Have I been in video games? I'm trying to think. I guess voice acting counts? Yeah, let's call it that. Yeah, sure, I've been in video games. Video games. I'm trying to think of what our equivalent words for video games are. There's a lot of interesting borrowed words when it comes to at least the past, I don't know, 30 years of technology when it comes to games and tech. Not 30 years, maybe like more like the past 70 years. Because games here are just called, well, games. And if you want to be more specific, you call them data games. Don't really think there's that many people that call them video games. I mean, the term exists, videospel, but it's a little awkward to say. Granted, there are people now that are trying to use the term gamer in Norwegian. The thing is, they don't translate it. They just say gamer. Which, I'll be honest, it doesn't flow. It just doesn't. Jeg en gamer. Not quite. Then again, that has been the thing with pretty much all tech terms for the past few years now, is they introduce, because we have a language council that tries to determine new words to introduce to the language that is Norwegian-centric, so that we don't completely lose the entire language. And they've come up with a few pretty decent compromises. For example, instead of saying tablet, you would say nettbrett, which is, well, internet tray or internet tablet, more or less. But it's more of like a accurate term for something that you would use here. And I think that's actually a really good term. Thing is, even after they introduced it, and everyone was like, hey, this is great, now we have a term that we can use. Everyone just kept saying tablet. With the exact same awkward inflection as well. Now you can have a tablet. It just, no. But, I mean, if that's what people are saying colloquially, then I guess that's what sticks. I think one of my favorite ones is, what is it? Oh yeah, .com. Because people have just stopped trying to translate the dot. Because we have words for that. For example, instead of saying dot, you can say the Norwegian word for period, which is punktum. And some places like insist that they use the word punktum for it when they say the entire address in whatever advert they're doing, but most of them just say dot, which doesn't really work in Norwegian because that's what we call, I don't know, both the thing on top of your beanie and also lint. I mean, of course, words are transformative. They change to whatever it is that people are saying, but I still think it's really funny. Internet plate, like you scoop some websites into your internet plate. I mean, kind of. Hell, I'm pretty sure that there's people that eat their dinner on those things. Wouldn't surprise me. There was a time when iPhone users would be upset when it was called a smartphone. That's what happens whenever something gets popular. People get pedantic. You can see that with a ton of stuff that's very popular right now, but people get weird about even if the terms are correct. If you want to see one that really gets under someone's skin, try walking up to someone watching an anime and calling it a cartoon. It's technically correct. It is a cartoon. But it doesn't have the same vibe. I remember when people called it Japanimation over here. That always seemed so over the top. I still remember I have the magazine on my desk still. It was one of the earliest Nintendo magazines. I read it still when I lived in my own old hometown when I was like 7. And they started this segment where they were going to be writing about something they called manga. And how this was a big new phenomenon, and we are going to be covering manga now. If you are interested in seeing manga, then we will be covering it here. Like, look forward to more manga things. And it was anime. It was Japanese animated shows. So I love that can just exist in that space. Like, no one was correcting them, no one was calling it anything else, no one had sort of an overview of what the terms meant, but they knew that it was a thing and that they liked it. They call it Japanimation despite all cartoons being animated in Japan. Yeah, that's the that's the funny thing. It also those definitions don't make any sense anyway. Like, how do you even define that? Okay, one of the key designers for Scooby-Doo, if I remember correctly, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they were originally Japanese. Like, had a massive impact on what is now considered like classic American animation. I'm pretty sure they immigrated though, so they would be considered American now, but still. And I mean, the more direct comparison, like you said, is, yeah, pretty much all of the shows that people recognize from the 80s especially, yeah, they were all animated in Japan. People talking about like the influence of American animation, and then they list the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which got like a bunch of its episodes animated by Japanese teams. Can we call those anime? I don't know. But this becomes one of those like semantic arguments that just gets thrown back and forth. I don't feel like there's all that much value in it. I just think it's funny how words work. That's really the main thing. Things tainted by racism. Yeah. A lot of that. Here, we still call it tegnefilm, which means a drawn movie. Of course, that doesn't really work for modern animation because, well, most of it is not drawn anymore, at least not in the way that the term works in this language. Drawn generally tends to refer to being drawn by pencil, but now everything is most likely either digital or 3D. But if it has like a cartoonish vibes, we still call it a drawn movie. That's the thing about language, is that it's not necessarily expressing reality, it's just expressing an idea of reality. Or sometimes, just complete disinformation. Could be that too. Oh. Has YouTube died? Yes, it has. Let's see, hit the save on that, and then turn that over. Almost feels like there needs to be something here, but maybe I'm overthinking that. There we go. One of these days I actually have to try and play something like Street Fighter EX Plus because I'm curious how intrusive this music feels like it is. So here's my logic here. Pretty much all of the themes that I hear from fighting games now don't convey much. They don't tell me much about the character. And what I'm hearing here is that there's no doubt in my mind that this is the theme for Skullomania. You have this sort of Super Sentai kind of a thing going. You have the clown music to show that he's absolutely insane. You have the small bits that insinuates that he has voices on the inside of his head. There's a lot here that goes into characterization. But oftentimes when you convey that much when you're trying to do something, it can get in the way of the actual gameplay. But I like that the music says something. There's certainly been fighting games that have done better soundtracks than others, but even if it fits the theme, something like Tekken 7 doesn't strike me in any way. There's nothing about it that tells a story that I want to feel invested in. It's more like hype music than it is characterization, is what I'm saying. Then again, that is probably what they're going for, so it does its job. Does look like it'll be correct to add more leaves over here of this type. Should fill out that area nicely. A little bit of sunlight here. Then we need to darken the stem a little, I think. No, that doesn't work right. Let's do it this way. Ah, because then it can come off that one plant. Uh-huh. See a little bit more here. Does that work? Yeah, kinda. I feel like I could add like a little bit of... Yeah, that'll do it. Maybe a little more subtle than that. Something like that. Just a bit of texture. An applied leaf under there. And probably a little bit of sharper contrast. That'll do it. How's that? Maybe I should extend this a little bit, just to give it a little bit more girth. Yeah, that'll do it. I feel like I could maybe imply some more leaves here. Like that, maybe. And then add a little bit of shadow. So then, what is everyone doing on a Monday evening / afternoon / morning, whatever it is over where you are? Everybody holding up okay? Blending that in a little bit. Thankfully, my plans for the day were already sort of set in stone. Just kind of dragged myself out of bed this morning, and then it was really just waiting for the vet appointment. Sometimes it's nice to not have to sit and plan a bunch of stuff or figure out where things are going and just put the plan into motion. I'm definitely the type of person that I have to be in the right mental state for things. So at times it really helps to kind of know where things are going ahead of time. So I can kind of prepare my mind for what it is that I'm going to be doing. Good thing about tonight is that I had the opportunity to be a bit spontaneous with this live stream, so it's not always the case, but sometimes. Hey, Goldian. Glad you can make it. I feel like I should probably fix this little area down here because it is going to get funky real fast if I don't. Okay, how do we salvage this? Should it all be grass? I guess certainly some of it should be. Some of this feels more bulb-like. Maybe I can kind of give it some definition that makes it feel more like it. This is looking sick. Thank you, I appreciate it. It was pretty spontaneous. But I'm glad that I had the extra time to sit and boop around with it for a little bit. And yeah, it's nice to jump back to the snipes again. Give them some, well, screen time? Is that the right term for this? Well, you kind of get what I'm saying. Because I always just litter them in the background of the other paintings that I do. So they don't get much spotlight of their own. Full disclosure, I was considering making this a Vikings on Trampolines poster, but after I'd already started it, I realized that the scaling and everything about it wouldn't really make sense with what I was doing, so I stuck with my original plan and instead did this knives. I'm happier with that. But will one of them be down in the grass gnawing on the stem supporting the one up top? Here, we'll make a very important addition. There we go. It's the most important knife, Snakepixel. Snakepixel is the best one. Oh, that looks so bad. Alright, hitting save, because he needs to be saved from himself. Grass straw, and more grass straws. Does this work? Not quite. Should this be a leaf instead? Or like that, maybe? Oh, I know what I can do. I can do, like, clover down here. Not quite clover, but clover-like. You know, it is weird whenever I listen back on these live streams, because I do tend to check back on them just to see if there was anything wrong with the broadcast. And the thing is, I'm wearing some pretty dense headphones while I do this. So my own voice is, for the most part, pretty muffled. So it's weird to listen to myself talk afterwards and be like, oh yeah, that's how that sounded to everyone else. Not sure where that anecdote was going, but it's out there now. Let's see, something like that, maybe? Is that the last one on the soundtrack? Oh, yeah, I just played it twice. Okay. What could we play as the next soundtrack? I'm gonna put on Mount Amazing while I wait. If anyone has any suggestions, just throw them my way. See, I like the sharpness of that, but not necessarily the composition of it. I think that's the thing about painting grass, is that it's one of those things that, in theory, very fast. You just throw it out there and then you have some grass. But then you start doing it and you realize you can't half-ass grass. Requires a lot of very specific brush strokes to make it readable. Grass takes a pound of flesh. What the fudge did you just say? Oh, nothing. Okay. Alright. Didn't get any suggestions, so I'm going to just pull something out. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do? How about Final Fantasy V? I was doing my first full digital painting a few months ago and made the mistake of making it 75% big tall grass and brush. Ended up giving up after a while. I mean, it is surprisingly demanding to do grass when you're intending to go for detail. It's deceiving because you think in your head that the process is you draw a lot of lines, and then by throwing it all together, eventually you'll get grass. Like, if you start out with an empty area and then you just go like this, it's like, ah, yes, now I have grass. But then readability starts becoming an issue, and then overlap starts becoming an issue. Shadows and interplay, and where do the additional light sources come from? There's a lot to painting grass. Now, I am admittedly half-assing it pretty intensely here, because I need to focus on some other parts right now. But, like, you could spend your entire career hyper-focusing on grass, and that would last you a lifetime. I mean, there's a reason why in the pixel art communities that I was in some years back, everyone would be obsessed with how to do grass tiles and how to get that shape to be readable and interesting. And there's many ways to do it, but I feel like a lot of people just kind of defaulted to noise mess. But hell, even in video games, there's a lot of trickery to make grass seem readable. Surprisingly, more so in 3D titles. There's a lot of bending and changing of perspective and meshing things around. Making the blades follow the camera. All sorts of tricks to make it seem like you can get an overview of where everything is. But you don't think about it. You're just like, ah, it's grass. It's long, and it's on the ground. Good job, developers. I saw someone attempting to add the grass functions of Breath of the Wild into Ocarina of Time, which is really interesting because the N64 has gotten a big boost in development recently because, well, the decompiling of various forms of code is one of them. The other is that now there's brand new software being written for it, so people can figure out quite a few things. They've really started to unlock the true potential of that console, which is very exciting. But more to the point, there was someone that was trying to recreate the grass effects from Breath of the Wild. And just looking through it, you start to realize all the little quirks that they added into that title to make that grass readable and interesting to look at, and possible to interact with in a way that made sense. But of course, when you're just booping around in the game, you don't think about it, because it works. There was another thing in that same respect. It was a detail that Miyamoto himself actually was very keen on pointing out to people because nobody noticed. It's the fact that you can chop up the signposts in it wasn't Kakariko, it was the first location in the game in Twilight Princess. I forget what the name of it is. Ordon Village, that's it. And you can chop it up in different directions, sort of like an expanded version of what you could do in Ocarina of Time. And then you could throw it into the water, and it would float, and it would interact with other pieces. Which is, according to them, took an enormous amount of time to add. But they wanted it because they wanted that feeling of immersion that you don't really think about. You just did it because you had the opportunity to. another detail that was added there that really nobody talked about is the fact that you can... There's a bunch of... I forget if it's cats or kittens, I'm just gonna say cats, that roam the village. And you can pick them up and throw them in the water. And if they do end up in the water, they can swim to shore by themselves and navigate all the way back to their original location. It's like, you didn't have to add that. Like, imagine how much time that probably took for very little game. But it was probably because, well, there's probably someone on the team that really likes cats, and if the cats just disappear, well, you might make someone sad. So what's the alternative? Remove the cats, or give them water-based pathfinding. I guess we know which one they chose. Not pixel art, but this makes me think of a video I watched on shaders simulating water. Yeah, there's a... That's a whole different beast. It's also very weird how that was sort of the technological benchmark for a while. Having realistic water. And then everyone just sort of forgot about that. And then just started obsessing over something else. I remember the GameCube was very big on rendering realistic water for a good while. Like, it had a bunch of titles where water was a central element because they really wanted to show off the horsepower. And then the 360, I remember, had a lot of early showcases of water tech, and I think Sony did some things as well, but I'm a little dodgy on the details at this point. Either way, there was a lot of water focus, and a lot of people wanted it done right. And I feel like it was just one of those trend things. It wasn't so much that it was important to anything, it was really just, if you could show that you could simulate water, then it would get articles written about it, and then people would invest, I guess. Something like that. Then people just completely forgot about that whole thing. Now you could probably do some absolutely insane things with water, but nobody really cares about that. Now. Doesn't have the same zeitgeist that it did. I seem to only see your notifications an hour in. You know, that might make sense. Because I've noticed that whenever I start a stream, the first hour is maybe like 10 people. And then once it passes about the hour mark, then it jumps up to somewhere between 20 and 50. A new restream due to the bot on the D-pad Discord. Yeah. I assume that a lot of the Discord group showed up because of that, but everyone else that's outside of the D-pad Discord, yeah, that might make sense. There was something that I heard. I have not looked into this whatsoever, but I saw on a different stream someone mentioned that there is now a setting that for some people is set to activate it automatically, and it's something in the vein of Twitch choosing when to send you messages and when it's relevant. So I don't exactly know where this is in your dashboard, but somewhere in your user settings, there's something where it says something to the effect of like Twitch email priority recommendations, something in that vein. And as far as I know, you're supposed to switch that off, and that means that it won't stifle the emails that you get from channels when they're live. But I don't know how real that is. I don't know how it works, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you to sit and do that. But if it is the case, that might be why you're seeing them late. Just speculating, though. Of course, there's a Reddit post from 10 years ago regarding the same issue. Yeah, things go in cycles. I mean, what was that, that thing everyone was freaking out about a little while ago? They were talking about how everyone's metrics on YouTube were going haywire, and oh, there's a algorithm apocalypse, and now everyone is losing views. The interest has gone down too much, and now we won't be able to continue our channels. Our revenue is destroyed. What is YouTube doing? And then, just conveniently, like every year, everyone had forgotten that this is when people go on vacation. So I don't know. I am in no way any expert when it comes to streaming. I just do this because I enjoy making things live every once in a while. But if anyone has any ideas on how this works, or if something makes more sense, then by all means chime in. Okay, let's hit save there. Singular raindrop would destroy one of these guys. Possibly. I just realized I'm not sure if you were referring to YouTube channels or these guys. They're a little bit bigger than a raindrop, I think. They could probably handle it. Not quite ant size. See, how big would this be? Like maybe maximum the size of a finger, I guess? Yeah. Yeah, they're about the same size. Why not both? Yeah. Next YouTube challenge, being washed away by the rain. No, maybe that's just because of who I am as a person and what I enjoy to watch and who I enjoy to be around. I've never seen a single one of those YouTube challenges that was so big for a while. Like, I'm gonna do the ice bucket challenge. I have never seen it. Never saw anyone doing like the planking thing. I never saw anyone doing like people running around and doing stupid things in public. Not a single one. I wouldn't even say that I was lucky. It's just it never even came around my radar. The only one of those that I have any sort of connection to whatsoever were all of the people that were eating surströmming for a bit. And the only reason why that was around on my radar for a good bit was because I would actively seek it out because it was so funny to me for a bit. I think it's mostly because, you know, to me, surströmming is mostly just normal. Like, it's just salted fish. And you're not supposed to open the can the way that people do. You have to let it drain, and then you eat the fish like a normal person. And then there was this whole trend of people being like importing all of this stuff and putting themselves through all this misery when it's just like, guys, it's just food. I think that's why it was so funny to me. Like, okay, think about it like this. It's the equivalent of Europeans importing, I don't know, Wendy's burgers and then shoving them up their nose and being like, ah, it hurts so bad. This is the worst thing I've ever experienced. Why do we do this to ourselves? Never heard of this as a trend, but the Sausage Man once made a sausage out of it, I think. I mean, what hasn't ordinary sausage made a sausage of at this point? I'm assuming that's what we're talking about. Yes, alright. I actually think I saw that one. The surströmming one. I don't know. Just a small bit of joy in my life. Surströmming is a delight. Whatever the Dorito dinosaur funeral was. I have no idea what those words mean. And at this point, I don't think I should ask. Let's see here. Hit and save on that. Where are we at? I'm not sure this will work, so I'm going to put this on a different layer, but it almost feels like it needs to be darker under here, just slightly. Might draw too much attention, but we'll give it a try. No, it's not necessary. It's too much stuff. Oh, I completely forgot about this guy. Ha ha! Oh my god. Alright, moving on. Alright, need to fill in this area. It's now canon and should stay there. No. No. Just no. It can be canon in our minds. Here, I can... Here's how we make it canon. There you go. Now it's canon. Justice for Nobby. See, I need to think about what this is supposed to be. Is it like a scrumpled leaf? Yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. Scrumpled's a word, right? Yeah, we'll call it a word. I love this track, by the way. It's such a simple build-up, too. There isn't really a lot to it. It's just a very pleasing composition. I think that's the interesting thing about Final Fantasy V, is because, at least at the time, it was something that most people were unfamiliar with because, well, they jumped straight from 4 to 6 when they released it westward. It meant that the jump over to 6 felt like such a giant leap. Like, look how much better the series has gotten since 4. But when you hear the music to 5, you see some through lines. Like, it's almost like a prototype or the melding of ideas that would eventually get used for 6. Alright, Goldian, you have a good one. Also, a lot of interesting concepts in it, like the planet that wants to take over another was first introduced in 5, which became kind of a reoccurring theme both for Final Fantasy 8 and 9. And while I don't remember exactly what happened in 4, I feel like, wasn't it 5 that introduced the I think it was X-Death that was in that one. And his entire thing is that he just wants to erase the universe completely. Or just find a way to nullify its existence. Which, I mean, it feels like every Final Fantasy game is like that now, but I remember playing it and thinking, like, this is actually a pretty novel concept, at least back then. I want to take the time to say that Lufia 2 is underrated. I haven't really looked into Lufia all that much. Maybe I should. Then again, that's the challenge with all of this, is just... Holy crap, old RPGs take a long time to get through. Like, I've been trying for several years on this channel to do a full playthrough of Breath of Fire 4 because there's so much to love about it. And I've never completed that game. It's so time-consuming. I feel like that's kind of where a lot of live streamers get born. Is they're like, oh, I can get paid for playing these games that I would otherwise never be able to finish. I suppose getting paid is generous in this regard, because I don't really think most live streamers are able to live off of their earnings. At least, I get the impression that it's pretty rare. At the very least, you could be mildly compensated for playing some things that you enjoy. Might be the first JRPG to introduce casinos as a minigame. Let me check something. Well, I do know that Lufia has a really good soundtrack, or at least Rise of the Sinistrals is really good. I'm trying to think, because I know that there was gambling in Metal Max. Metal Max was an SNES game, but it might have released after Lufia 2. Developed and published in 1991. I'm pretty sure there's something older, but then again, now I'm starting to, like, dig into my limited knowledge of JRPGs, so I'm not going to make a statement about that, but if it is the first, then that's a really interesting accomplishment. Just the 1% is able to make earnings from live streaming. Yeah, I kind of figured. It's a tough crowd. And kind of the reason why I keep saying that I'm not a live streamer and I don't do this professionally is, on one hand, there is no way that I could make this my full-time job. The other is that I feel like you kind of have to live your entire life through that. Like you have to genuinely fight to make that your career and make some bold decisions in order to be able to exist in that space. Then again, there's so many of these professions that people have that, frankly, are wildly misrepresented in what it's actually like to live them. I think the strangest one is people's perception of like professional tournament players. Hell, you have the people that are absolute masters at their craft, people that win fighting game tournaments and all of that, have all of the fame, and they stand up on stages and have giant broadcasts about them, and then you find out what they earn, and they earn just pennies. Like, virtually any other job would pay them so much better. But they're in there because they really love those games and they really want to play them. And yet, it's given sort of the veneer of, like, what a professional soccer player would get in terms of a salary, and it's, like, nowhere near that. Not to say that there aren't tournaments that actually pay, but I think this is kind of a thing that I've spoken to about a lot of different people when it comes to things in the digital space, is that frankly it is one of the worst paid areas in business. And it's very insecure in a ton of different ways. So you really have to love what you do, because you are probably going to be struggling for a very long time until you're actually able to pay off anything. It's a very, very volatile career path. Doesn't help that Twitch has non-existent algo exposure outside of the front page. There is that on practically every platform, unfortunately. The modern entertainment space is not human-friendly in any way, shape, or form. And the fact that so many people have been convinced to start careers on something this dodgy, and they're still doing it despite being jerked around this much and being paid so poorly, and their rights and the things that they produce being abused as much as it is, and as hostile as people are. It is incredible to me that people persist despite this. Like, it doesn't surprise me at all that people that do this as a career sometimes just absolutely lose their mind. It is an absolutely insane pressure. Being able to do it casually is probably the most healthy option that you have. Whoa! My English can't comprehend that one. Commercialization and corporatization came later. To an extent. There certainly became more specific ways that they targeted how to generate profit off of these things, but I feel like the audience, and therefore the profitability of these things, were already present. The difference is that the company that owned the platforms wanted to control the distribution of that. And so people still made the same things, and they still had the potential to have the same reach. It's just that they were artificially bottle capped by companies that wanted to use their, well, frankly, their products for their own gain without having to pay for it. There's a lot to be said about how this stuff worked, but at least as far as my perspective goes, it almost feels like more meddling from the content holders, more so than it was being able to make things viable. Things were already viable, that's why they wanted to meddle with it. But that's how it's been for the past, oh, I don't know how many years now. The indie market, for example, did perfectly well in the early 2000s and 2010s because the AAA industry was really set in their ways and had all the establishment in the physical space. And the indie wave came along and figured out that you can use the online space for marketing. But it was good because the two were mostly separate. Indies didn't have the money to be out in public the same way that AAA did, but then that meant that they had the option to spread things around the online space, which gave them traction. And then I think it was Nintendo that started the Nintendo Direct thing, and then they realized that, hey, we can just do everything online. Then COVID happened. Really appropriate music, by the way. Then COVID happened, and then every single company was just like, oh, well, how about we just completely dominate the online space and take over all of those areas? And now suddenly, indie developers don't have that for themselves anymore. So something that someone else developed, a giant company came in and just kind of swallowed it. And I'm assuming that that's going to happen again and again in other different fields as well, but it happens very quickly in the tech sector. And it's because in the modern era of the internet and everything else, rights and rules are very wishy-washy, and there's very little that has been established, and very little that has been put in as far as protections or systems. So people can just kind of step on people's toes and then nothing happens. I don't know. I feel like I should find a positive spin on this by the end of it, but frankly, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so can only hope for the best, I guess. I feel like regardless of what's going to happen now, there's probably going to be some kind of shift soon, because, well, outside of titles that people have been expecting for years and years and years and years, there's very little that's doing genuinely well in the game space. That means that there's going to be some falling off of some groups, I think, soon. And depending on how big that crash out is, either it leaves a vacuum that people will just fill back up again, or people will maybe build something better. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think it always makes sense to try to predict the future. You just have to keep trying, and then hopefully something good will happen. I do think indies are getting more recognition. Those indie cartoons that have been popping up give me hope. Yeah, that's an interesting one. The indie cartoon market is moving along. Kind of what I'm wondering now is if, because there's a couple of companies that have started getting some recognition, and kind of what tends to happen with these things is that you have some success, they coalesce into a group, and then now you just have a regular animation company. So I think the important part here is that you're able to mutate the market into becoming something else where the conditions are more favorable for people to make things that they want to without too much, like, monopolization. And that's a different thing to figure out. Sometimes those changes happen, but they're short-lived. Sometimes they're pushed in that direction because certain companies have something to gain from these things happening. It's hard to say. At least for now, without being too much of a spoil sport about it, I am happy that we're getting some interesting cartoons that we can watch online. Just off the top of my head, there's all the stuff that Glitch has been doing, and I actually have really been enjoying Monkey Wrench. I didn't really know what I expected when I went into it, because I remember there was the original YouTube channel where they were producing it. I think those characters were kind of just like joke characters at first, and then it sort of turned into an actual story. So it's been interesting to see that transformation. People laying people off makes me sad. Yeah, at the very least in the video game space, there's going to be quite a lot more of that in the next couple of years, unfortunately. I think I can say that with some relative confidence. The important thing is being able to weather that storm and then hopefully make something great once things pan out. I mean, if we're being straightforward here, I mean, me and the rest of D-Pad Studio are not exempt from this. We really need our next title or titles to work out. So we're of course hoping that it will do well, but if we were just cynical about it, there's a very high probability that it will do very poorly, because that is kind of what every company now is struggling with, and there's certainly ones that have a lot more traction. You get a lot of accidental hits these days, which is very difficult to quantify when you're trying to plan for something. But, I mean, can't do anything other than just keep on working towards the goal of the thing we want to make, and then hope that other people see it and are want to try it. Because there's no shortage of market investors and very clever people.tm that want to tell you all about how you are going to be successful if you only do these particular things. And if you don't do this and this, then your game will be unsuccessful. And then you see people doing exactly those things, and it didn't work out anyway. So you have to just kind of try. And then maybe make some backup plans to make sure that you can make it even though that title might not do so well, and then try again. Hopefully the waters will be more favorable the second time, or the third time, or however many times it takes. I think the part about this whole discussion, because when I say stuff like this, oftentimes I get the impression that people feel like I'm talking about something that's a very new thing. But a lot of the companies that are huge now and has seen massive growth spurts and have done exceptionally well, a lot of them, if not most of them, have had periods where they have nearly gone bankrupt several times. But they've somehow managed to weather through that and then get back to finding a hit for something. And it's happened multiple times. But I also don't think there is such a thing as sort of like a magic formula that will just get you all the attention. There's this idea that I've heard, which is that, for example, advertising is one of those things that it's one of those things that you feel like you have to do even if it might never have worked in the first place. It could be that advertising for your stuff is genuinely useless. It doesn't do anything. Like, nobody actually gets convinced to look at your stuff if you advertise it. And there's some signs that point to that. However, if you didn't do it, and it turns out that your thing failed, then you have then you will just sit there and blame yourself for not having tried everything. So a lot of people will just do it anyway, because otherwise would be gambling on something that might not work. Hey, Be Emotive, what's up? I guess what I'm saying with all of this, in very strange terms, is that I think there's a lot of the things here that you just can't predict. And sometimes all of this prediction and planning and whatever else can just kind of drive you a bit nuts. Everyone will have brilliant ideas for marketing and finding the right audience or whatever. But sometimes it's literally just you accidentally manage to get people to see it. Then you get high off your own supply and you say, holy shit, I'm so good at figuring out how to get people interested in things. I am damn good. And then your next title flops, and now you kind of just scratch your head and go like, well, it must have been a fluke. It's such a different environment than... Sometimes I think about, like, the contrast of being a farmer or something like that. And I'm not going to be, like, simplifying the work that farmers do. It's more so those markets tend to be more about predictable orders. It's like, okay, this region needs a certain amount of, I don't know, potatoes. And we'll get a certain amount of orders for that per quarter. That's the job. And that consistency will keep food on the table as you get through the years. Just like, keep making potatoes for a quarterly market, and there you go. Not anything like that when it comes to video game production. And the few companies that I've seen that has that kind of mentality have just completely destroyed themselves. What is this OST from? This is Final Fantasy V for the Super Nintendo. You make something for your fans and then you're doomed to make it forever. Miyazaki being doomed to make Souls games until the end of time. Yeah. There's a pattern in game production. I mean, I mentioned this a few streams ago. I think I might not have. I don't recall. But a bunch of really senior Capcom heads just broke off and started a new studio. Now, granted, they did start that studio because they were paid a ton of money from was it Tencent or was it... I forget. I think it might have been Tencent that started that division. But the main reason why they wanted to start that, I think it was Bengus. It was the head director of Dragon's Dogma and Devil May Cry, and the art director for Street Fighter IV and Ghosts and Goblins all just jumped ship. And the reason for that was that they were approaching somewhere in the ballpark of like 60. And they knew that if they stayed at the company, their last game would probably just be a sequel to something that they already made. So, considering that they might not have that much time left until they retire, they were like, this is my last chance. I have to go independent, or else I won't be able to make any games that I would like to make. Which is a weird thing to be thinking about. I feel like that applies to the FIFA and Call of Duty games. Yes. I mean, you can hardly find something that's more market manufactured than those games. And I mean, it's worked so far, except now I think EA is being sold, I think. If I remember correctly. It's not sad, it's great news. Oh no, it's great news that they are finally stepping away so they can make their own thing. It's sad that the current work ethic is that you have to just make sequels to things. And the truth is, that didn't used to be the case. It didn't used to be that all a company did was just make the same thing over and over again. Now, if you look back at companies' catalogs, you might think otherwise. For example, like Capcom making 1,000 Mega Man games and all of that. But that's not really the case for a bunch of other companies. Like, okay, let's bring up Natsume again, because we were talking about that last stream. They just made anything. all kinds of weird nonsense. Treasure, for example, was their whole thing was that they were making new and weird games with every iteration. Like, that was their whole company motto. That they wanted to make new things for every release. And I mean, that does happen to some indie studios, but, you know, the tighter money gets, the less of a chance that you have to do that. And with the current gigantic companies that are walking around these days, yeah, they don't really have the luxury of making whatever. It's always a nice day for me when I see a larger company try to do literally anything else. Seems like a lot of senior Japanese devs have gone indie to reclaim their original properties and make stuff that no one will greenlit. Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. Granted, it is very tough for them to do so. Usually, you have to have pretty significant financial backing to make something that feels like it would be in the vein of what you would expect. And while I don't really want to make sweeping statements about it because I'm a bit ignorant, so take this with a grain of salt, but I get the impression that this is not a particularly common practice in Japan. Now we are speaking specifically about Japanese developers now, so that's why I'm talking about that, but I get the impression that if it's not particularly common, that means that it's probably also a lot harder to put together a team that would be able to sort of match the desired quality. So you do sort of get doubled up with commitments if you're going to do that. Okay, hit and save on that. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting things happening in the industry right now, so we'll just see where it ends up. Really, as far as I'm concerned, my wish is always that artists can make art that people will enjoy. That's really the main thing. Because I feel like when I started this business and we were trying to sort of figure out where our role was in all of it, I didn't think at all about how all of this had to do with like business management and risk assessment and all of that. What I wanted to do was just sit down and make games, and then people would play them, and then they'd have a good time, and then I'd make another one. That was sort of the entire intent. And I feel like if people could do that, things would be a lot better. But then we have to deal with money and money-related activities. Ugh. Did you hear about Japan's proposal to limit Western influence in animation and gaming productions to help export more consistent cultural experiences to other countries? No, I have no idea what that is. More consistent cultural experiences. Boy, that's a phrasing. I am an avid proponent of multiculturalism. I think the blending of things is important. So, limiting influence doesn't sound like it would be a good idea to me, but then again, this is the first I've heard of it, so I can't really comment on it. I can link you the article. No, that's okay. I think I kind of get the gist. And, well, we'll see what happens there. I hope whatever they choose to do, it is to the benefit of everyone. And, yeah. I think that's the best way of putting it. How far along are we now? Because I have maybe 20 minutes, I think. Am I gonna be able to wrap this up in time? Maybe? Maybe not. Well, we'll just keep going. See if we can get at least close to the finish line. Let's at least see if I can get this one quadrant ready. I think that's at least an acceptable goal. You know, it's been so long, and my mental state has been in a very particular place for ages, that when I hear this music, my head keeps telling me, like, oh, this is very Nobuo Uematsu-like. It's like, it really feels like their kind of music. And then I'm like, yes, of course it is, because they actually composed this. And it's been so long of games imitating his music that sometimes I just kind of forget that, oh yeah, they did actually sit and compose all this music back in the day. Like, they were an active participant in these titles. This was back when they actually worked on these games. It's like, it's very strange now that the new Kirby Air Ride is out, because you'll see pictures of Satoru Iwata and Sakurai, like, holding up pictures of Kirby together. And then you're like, wait, oh yeah, Sakurai was one of the original creators of Kirby, all the way back when it first came out. Because you're so used to now that all of these franchises are just handed over to new teams, and they just sort of, like, imitate. It's kind of like Miyamoto isn't really involved in Mario games anymore. He'll try some elements early on in development, or test the starting area just to see if it feels right, and then he'll go and do his own thing. But then suddenly he'll be interviewed about being involved in the new movies, and you're like, oh wait, he's actually involved in this? He's actually doing something? It's like you're so used to all of these people not being even remotely connected to these projects anymore. I don't know if it's worth the effort, but I think it would be useful to set up a bot to post about the newsletter in chat. Yes, it would. I just keep forgetting to do it. I really should do that one of these days. Another thing I should do is have a link to it in the channel description, because, well, the newsletter is very fresh, so haven't really got around to that yet. And a third thing I should do is upload these live streams, because I've actually cleared a lot of them for upload now, so they are ready to go. I even have the channel ready to put them up so people can actually see the VODs. I just haven't actually sat down and done it yet, because my brain is constantly on what I need to do for Vikings. But I think, I've probably said this 100 times before, but what I am doing next is I'm probably just going to upload the live streams from just a couple of streams ago. Everything I've cleared. Because I frankly cannot go through everything that I've recorded. There are now somewhere in the ballpark of 120 episodes. I've managed to clear maybe 7 of them. And some of them are like 7 hours long. Even if I do it on double speed, I can't watch through it all. So we're talking like a full year's worth of just watching video to clear all of it. So I'm just gonna have to start somewhere. It's probably gonna be from either earlier this year or last year, and then that will be the start of the VODs, because anything else, that's just not gonna happen. There's no way. Oh yeah, I'm gonna pin the newsletter, since Adrian was gracious enough to put that up. So if anyone wants to go check that out, that's right there. I'll do the spiel again for those that have joined and don't know what this is. So, D-Pad Studio is currently struggling to get a bit of traction on social media because social media has changed. And how do we get the information to you about our new video games when they launch if you can't see anything that gets posted on social media? What we're going to be doing is the D-Pad Studio newsletter. And we will be not spamming that on everyone. It's not going to be like bombarding your inbox. We are only going to be putting out 3 emails a year. The first one is already up on the website. So if you're not subscribed yet, you can already find that on dpadstudio/newsletter. And the next one should be coming out in March, and it will be detailing more details about content in Vikings on Trampolines. So if you're interested in stuff from Vikings on Trampolines, and you genuinely don't think that you'll be able to see it anywhere else, just hit the subscription on the newsletter, and then you'll just have that pop into your inbox someday in March. And if not, well, you can just follow us on the regular channels as well. All of that works. It's more so if you genuinely want to catch up with us and you're unsure if you're going to be able to see it in the future, this is what I would recommend. From everything that we've tested so far, and everything that we've posted around, and everyone that we've spoken to, people don't see the stuff we put out. I cannot tell you how much we blasted info about Savant Descent Remix, about our announcement for Vikings on Trampolines when that first showed up. Like, we went to Tokyo Game Show 3 times. We went to Gamescom 3 times. We were on the live show there. We had the trailer shown by IGN proper. We had maybe 140 meetings during that whole thing with journalists, and nobody saw it. Just complete dead silence. So, in that kind of environment, this is all I got. This is the only solution that we've been able to come up with. We have the D-Pad Discord, we have our social media channels, we have our YouTube channels. Unless we're gonna start, like, doing funny dances on TikTok, probably the newsletter is your best bet. So we'll see how that works in the future. And of course, I want to be direct that this is a work in progress. And if it turns out that you want this to be something different, or there's things that you want to change, just tell us and then we'll fix it. Because we want this to be something that you can look forward to. Some animated shorts would be great for people on TikTok. I think that is correct. No idea how we'd have the time to make that. There's so many things that I would absolutely love us to do. I want to do like a whole ass animated movie. I want to make a TV series. I want to make 6 different games. But we have to finish the production of Vikings first, I think. And especially with how compact the team is right now, just to make this reach the finish line, we don't have as many options as we would like. Now we're gonna try and do everything that we can. And I'm not talking about all of this because I'm sitting here and going like, oh man, I want all these people's money. Like, the reason why this is so much on my mind and why it sort of permeates my existence every day is because I think Vikings is genuinely a really fun game. Like, I've been showing this game off with the rest of the team now for, what is it, almost 15 years. I know this game is fun. I love this game. I genuinely, when I'm at like social events or I meet up with other devs, I bring the dev kit just so we can sit and play Vikings on trampolines just because I actually like playing it. So, I can't say that everyone else will like Vikings on trampolines, but I know I like it, which means I want other people to know about it because I think they'll think it's fun. The problem is, I have no idea how people see stuff anymore. I thought I did, but our previous release has made me think that maybe my intuition isn't entirely correct. So, kind of like what I was talking about earlier in the stream, you just have to try stuff. Maybe the newsletter is the way to go. Maybe doing funny TikTok dances is the way to go. Maybe I should just sit and make memes for the next, like, 2 years. And that'll somehow get this on people's radar. I don't know. As long as the end result is a bunch of people sitting together and enjoying this game because they like it, that's what matters to me. But I also have to make it in a way that doesn't just completely destroy me as a human being at the same time. Wishing you $1 gorillion in the future. I appreciate that. But as much as I talk about this on the stream, like, I'm not gonna sit here and, like, blast you guys about market strategy and all of that. I think the most important thing here is just, I really like making games. And from what I've seen, from what we've done so far, there's a lot of people that like playing the games that we have made. So hopefully, in the future, we'll be able to make more games that people like. If there's anything to take from the conversation, let it be that. Maybe I should add just a little bit of shadow here. Yeah, because then it implies that this is under it. I think that's a good idea. There. Okay. We're not really that far off on this thing. Can't wait to play the game with my future daughter. First off, congratulations. And I can verify that we've tested it extensively with one of our team members' daughters, and she is delighted about it. So it's daughter approved. Let's see here. Just some implied plans here, I think. Doesn't have to go too crazy. It's probably the instruments, but this track in particular gives me very Secret of Mana vibes. Then again, a lot of those projects shared synths, so that's probably where I'm getting it from. I didn't see the process so far, but what are your recommendations to have this amount of detail and still have contrast between stuff? I'm trying to sort of parse how to answer that question. I suppose hue contrast is probably the best way of looking at it. I can give a quick demonstration here, because this is like just a basic thing they teach you in school. You've probably seen it on art lessons or wherever. But if you put this to grayscale, you can see where the emphasis on the light is, and what you'll be paying the most attention to when you're looking at it instead of thinking about the colors. So here the emphasis is of course on the main part. Get some smaller parts here that leads the eye. So you also have this part and this part, which then leads you down. So you get a nice spattering of elements that you're looking at specifically. Of course, the most important part is the centerpiece here. So that's where you're going to be centering your gaze. But this also centers the through line. So since your eye is probably naturally going to be moving in this direction, you go sort of zigzagging through things. And I have strategically placed the different snipes that you find as you look through it, kind of across those lines. So a lot of what I'm doing here is taking those center points of attention and then sort of removing whatever is taking your attention too much. So when I then activate the colors again, now there's a lot more happening, but those elements are still there. That's the brief version that I can give. Now, I can say all of that, but the truth is that the rest of that comes with practice. So, what I just said is a good place to start, but the rest of it is just experimenting with something roughly along those lines and then seeing what sticks. Eventually, it just becomes natural, and you start doing it automatically. Like, there's a lot of this kind of stuff here that I don't even think about when I do. In fact, so I've taught a few art classes, not a ton, but a few of them. But part of what happens when you become a teacher rather than just someone that draws stuff for fun is that someone will ask something similar to what you just did, and now you have to try and figure out why you do the things that you do. And you've probably never thought about it. So a lot of this just comes with practice. There's a lot of these principles that I haven't done necessarily on purpose, but one of the benefits of doing teaching is that sometimes someone will ask you something like this, and then you're going, oh, so that's why I do that, and now you can apply it to your own practice. So, being aware of your techniques is important, but using just the dome on your head can sometimes be the easiest solution. There's a lot of moments of teaching students that still sticks out in my head. I had one in particular that was they were kind of starting out with drawing, and I mean they improved very quickly. So they really took a lot of the stuff that I said to heart, which was very good. But one of their first things that they wanted me to teach them was, how do I draw the arms so that they end up at an appropriate position, and how do the joints work at an angle? And this is something that even people that teach anatomy will sometimes struggle to articulate in a way that a student can understand quickly. And for me, it was a really interesting moment because, on one hand, sometimes it doesn't even work out when I draw that, because it is a very tough angle to get right. But there's this kid here, and maybe, depending on what I tell them now, they might give up or maybe improve massively depending on how I phrase this. So it was sort of like, okay, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna figure this out. It was an interesting learning experience. I feel like I gave some pretty good advice on that one, but it was interesting. It's interesting to sort of be in that boat where it's like, okay, we got to figure out how to articulate this to maybe someone that is not familiar with a lot of artistic terminology and maybe has sort of a very basic idea of how these things work. I really love the Vikings piece you did, probably one of my favorites. I am pretty happy with that one. I think it worked out very well. I've been sitting on that composition in my head for years. So by the time we were ready to announce that title, I was ready. There was not much deliberation in my head for that one. I didn't even have to think of the composition or anything. It was just like getting it down on paper. It's not always that works out, but this time it certainly did. I guess not always that I feel happy about the stuff that I draw, but that one, I think it worked out. Alright, I think there's probably more things I can sit and nitpick on. Yeah. Got a bit distracted there. Okay. Here's what I'm thinking. I think I'm going to wrap up here, because at this point, it is almost midnight here, and I should probably wrap this up before it gets too late. If there's anything else left that I need to do, probably I would just add that post-stream. But I'd say we actually got some good traction here. So if we look at the improvements that we made today, I mean, this is quite a lot of stuff we managed to get in. Now there's still some roughness here. I mean, if we go into 100% here, there's a bit of grime that still needs to be cleaned up. I definitely think this main snipe here could get some extra polish. And some of the main leaves here, because you're going to be looking at them directly, is probably going to need a little bit more of a brush up. But other than that, you know what? I think this is looking pretty good. Now, I do jump back onto work on Vikings tomorrow, so I'm not expecting to sit and mess around too much with this, but depending on if I finish up stuff early for that day, maybe I'll jump back to this and wrap it up then, in which case I'll post it online. Alright, I think that does it for today. I think I've said most of what I need to say so far. Kind of like what I mentioned, I will probably be putting this up in the next couple of days, provided that I have a little bit of extra time for it. I'm not going to be expecting to do another live stream until maybe sometime during the weekend next week. Though I am rapidly approaching a live stream that I'm going to be doing on in Norway, but I don't think that's going to be this weekend. So honestly, I will probably still have some time for that. Also, the stuff on Vikings is progressing pretty fast, so maybe I'll have more time than I think. Who knows? Anywho, I think it's time I wrap this up. As always, appreciate you all for stopping by. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.